Hello there. So here we are with issue 34, and let's just have a look, see what we got going on here. So the first thing we're going to have is the DeAgostini class cruiser. So the only place you would have seen this would have been in Rebels. I don't think they've showed it in any other medium. So Rebels is where you're going to see that, which explains Chopper here. It's basically a tie. I guess I take that back. There's one right there. But they use it to launch TIE fighters and whatnot, so yeah. We're going to look at types of stars in the Guide to the Galaxy section. So that might be interesting. I actually learned a little bit about stars. Um, then we're going to get into the refueling of starships, so that might be pretty cool. Always important to get refueled. And here we are with our next parts. So we've got a couple of pieces of framework. We've got our actuator plates, and we've got our thrust vector plates. That's this part here. We've got our actuator arms. That's these here. We've got some framework. We'll set those off to the side because we know we're not going to touch those just yet. A boatload of screws. We'll set those over there. Some more screws. We'll set those over there. We've got one of these little things. Yeah. We got that, and we should have another one. Oh, we got this one here. One of those. And then we've also got these. These are the Fuel Drive Pressure Stabilizer. So we've got some of those. So we may actually put those on. And I have a feeling that they'll go on all the pieces. So let's have a quick look, see what we got going on here. And then we'll kind of dive in from there. So let's have a look here. So yeah, so we do our actuator arms. That's all well and good. And then we put together these pressure stabilizer assemblies. So we'll have a total of 4 of these that we put together. And the interesting thing is, they're actually supposed to have this crease in between. So I think that's kind of interesting. So test fit the pressure stabilizer in the slot next to the last thrust vector plate. So it tells you to test fit it, not to actually put it in. So maybe those will get attached in a later issue. So we won't actually put those in, but we will put them together. It says to just press fit them together until the glue, and pressing the assembly firmly until the glue holds. So yeah, you do glue them. All right, so what I'm going to do is I will take these and we'll get these over and cleaned. I will go ahead and get the paint process started on those, and then we'll come back and see how everything else goes with that. So we will see you when we get all of this stuff done and we're ready to proceed. So see you after a bit. Okay, so here we are. This is the primer I have been using. It's a Rust-Oleum, just a flat gray primer. It's supposed to be ultra cover. Also bonds to plastic. And the problem that I had was the cap got plugged. And so I know with rattle cans, a lot of times you want to spray them upside down. I didn't know if you had to do that with primer. Apparently you do. And so my primer cap got plugged. So I also had this primer here. And it's an all-purpose household primer. It's a gray. It doesn't cover it as well. And so it seems to me as if there might be some spots where it's not completely covered, which I'm not terribly happy with, but we'll see how it goes. But for now, I'm just going to dust everything off because they've been sitting over here primered for a while. So I'm just going to give them a light dusting so we can get all that off. So with these, I'm going to paint 3 of them the base color. And then I have one that's going to be painted a completely different color. So we're going to do the base color first. And I've got my cap sitting in this solution of alcohol. Hopefully it'll break some stuff loose. We'll see how well that works. But yeah. So let's go ahead and get these ones covered, and then we'll come back with the airbrush and paint that last one. So as always, I like to make sure I get all the sides from all the angles. And top down is important as well, which is one of the spots that I noticed the primer didn't really cover terribly well. And then I'll also do the backs along the bottoms here. Not that you'll see them, but I just like to make sure that I have complete coverage everywhere. We'll just do a quick once over. Little light there, little light there. Looks like pretty good coverage. All right, so we'll let those get taken care of. I'll get my paint ready for this, and we'll get that painted as well. And then I've got some airbrushing on two of these that I'll show you the picture. Maybe I'll show you the picture like right now. And as you can see, just like the first set of 4 that we did, we had the one with the gray. This one we've got 2 with the gray, and you can see in this picture also there's also one that is a light gray, and I'm going to use the same color that I did for the 2 pieces that were in the middle section. So that should get those all taken care of and good to go. So what I'll do is I'll set these off to the side so none of the overspray from the airbrush gets on them. There shouldn't be, but I'll set those off to the side, let them set up while we paint this one, and we'll be good to go. So let me go get all the rest of that set up, and we'll come back and get the last one painted. Alright, so we've got our paint here ready to go, and this is light ghost gray, and so we're just going to paint this one up. Got a little test up there. Alright. The thing about this color is I can't really tell how well it's covering compared to the primer, because it's pretty close to the same color as the primer, I think. Which in the past I have used just the primer as my color. I'm going to say that's good. If not, always thought it should have been. And the good thing is it doesn't have to be perfect, because when they painted it, they didn't do a perfect job either. So we'll just leave it at that. I'm going to go clean this up. So here we are. We're down to our last 2 pieces to paint here, at least for this time period. And this time I've done something a little bit different. As you can see, I've masked them. Just want to, the ones that were in the image, the lines were fairly crisp. I mean, I don't care if it's perfect, but the lines were fairly crisp, and I just want to try to mimic that. So, now the interesting thing is this is a gray that I used before, and it doesn't look very dark, but it must dry darker. So, we're going to go to town on this and see what happens. Sorry about that. So we got to make sure you can kind of see it here if I get this held at the right angle. On this inside part, you can still see some of the white, so we got to make sure we get in there with that. And then this back part here was a little light. And that looks good. Hopefully we brought enough paint to do the job. We'll find out here in a minute. Well, if we brought enough paint, it's just barely. All right, so that looks good, I think. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. So we'll get that to let that dry, and we'll be able to move on to the next part. See you guys when they're dry. Okay, while we're waiting for those parts to dry so we can take off the masking and be done with that part, we're going to go ahead and get these, what are they called? The fuel stabilizers. We're going to get these put together so you can tell. So they're all four are the same, and you can tell that there's two distinctly different sides. So one side's got the tab, the other side does not, and they just match up. So pretty straightforward. We've got one side, this side here has the nipples. You can see the nipples there, and these have the little holes for those to go into. And we just are going to, I'm just going to put a touch of glue in all the little holes, and we'll just smash them together. And try not to glue my finger to it in the meantime. Now the interesting thing is you can see that you can still see the seam there, and that is evident on the original Falcon, the actual studio model, and it's actually designed into this. So if you look along the bottom, let me get this kind of, so if you can see along the bottom there, this seam is really tight, but yet we still have this crease here. So that's all part of the design, so I'm not going to mess with that. We want it to be there. So I don't know where they're located, where they're available, whatever. I was curious, anybody out there ever have Bordeaux pizza? I don't know if it's an Iowa thing or something like that. It's basically French bread for crust, and then they make pizza out of it, whatever. It kind of came around in the late '80s, from what I can remember here in Iowa, and you don't see them much anymore. And I remember when they first came around, they had like amazing deals on their pizzas. Like you could get, if you buy one large, you got the second one for like $4 or something like that. And so, like very much like Little Caesars as far as pricing goes. But we don't have one in Knoxville anymore where I live. And where I used to live, in the town I used to live in called Perry, Iowa, they had a Bordeaux there, and uh, they have a pizza there that I just absolutely loved, and it kind of took me back to when I was a kid. So back in the mid '80s, Pizza Hut had this pizza called the Priazzo, and it basically was more or less a calzone pizza. So it's like an actual pizza pie. So it had, kind of a deeper crust, and then they put all the sauce and the meat and everything and cheese on the inside. Then they put a thin layer of crust over the top, and the Pizza Hut would actually put cheese on the top of that. Well, Bordeaux has one they call the Amorza, and it's basically like a supreme or a combo or whatever you want to call them pizza, and it's got everything, all the meats, all the veggies, whatever. Well, I decided my daughter needed to try one, so we had one tonight, and it was pretty darn good. So, yeah. All right, so we got these four put together, and we'll be able to test fit one in here, and they're just going to go in just like this. Ta-da! And there you go. That's how it's going to go in there. Okay, so there's the two of them, kind of side by side. The masking is a little overdone on this one for sure. That one's a little bit different, and I kind of overran on that side. But I feel like I've got good coverage everywhere. Look on the sides. Look on these little vents here, and it looks like there's good coverage there. If you turn it just right, the light will kind of reflect a little bit and it makes it look like it's not covered, but I assure you it's covered. So that looks pretty good. All right. So let me bring up the picture and you guys can kind of see what I mean by those. So let's bring up that picture there and you can see how those look like they were masked off. So the first one that I did like that, I just kind of airbrushed it and then I kind of wiped off some of the paint, and that was fine. And I think that either would probably be fine. They were putting this thing together in a hurry, and so they just kind of slapped it together, and they weren't terribly particular, and they weren't very meticulous. They just kind of did things. They used one micro brush. Make sure we put that in our thing. So I think that's probably pretty good. All right, so let's get out our other ones here. Get those out here. Get these other pieces out as well, and we can kind of line them up. Okay, so we'll have this one, that one, and then finally this one. Okay, so this will be number one, so I'm going to label this now. We'll say B1. This is number one. All right, and then we have this one, we'll say is B2, B2, and then we have this one is B3. Boy, my writing sucks. And that one is B4. All So they're all labeled. Now let's get these other ones out here. So this is 13. That's the last one. 11. 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 6. 5. 12. 10. And 9. Alright, so this is what all of the actuators are going to look like on the back end of the Falcon. And let's just kind of favor this one way or the other so you can see the whole thing. There you go. We finally completed all of the actuators. And of course, this will go together a bit nicer. Trying to get it together without messing stuff up close enough for government work. But that's what all the actuators are going to look like. They're all painted, I feel like, appropriately. There's going to be some weathering done to them and that kind of stuff. Like this one here has got some rust right around this edge and whatnot. But I feel like that came out really, really well. And I really like how that came out. And of course, it's all going to fit in a lot different when all of these come into play. So these will go in here as well on these spots and those spots. And yeah. So that is going to finish these thrust sections. And then next time we will get into this section here. We're going to have some more external parts, some of the more framework that goes along with that framework probably. We'll probably start putting together the framework. And some more rib and that kind of stuff. And so that should be a nice, quick, easy little episode. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Hopefully you like the amount of effort I went into researching this and all of that kind of stuff. The good thing is, majority of my research that I spent on these was spent on this first piece here, over here. This section was the first one I did. And so that one took me the longest because I had to figure out which side was which and also try to determine what the best course of action was as far as whether to attach these and then try to figure out how to paint them and all that kind of stuff. I'm happy with how I did this. Like I said, these pieces will get painted later with the whole thing and it'll all come out fine. So, but now these actuators for the bottom are all completed. We can put those in my little storage container for these, and they can sit there and wait and be ready to go when needed. And I'll probably put these fuel stabilizers in there as well, because why not? And I've got them all numbered so I know what order they go into, and have to do that because otherwise it'll take me a half hour to figure out which ones are which as I go forward. So, all right, guys, we'll see you again on issue 35, and I bet you guys thought I would forget. I did forget on Christmas, but I'm not forgetting this time. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm happy to say that we made it through 2020, and with any luck, 2021 will be much better. Somehow, I just don't think so. I don't anticipate having to deal with the Corona thing, but we'll find some new and inventive way to ruin our lives. So, all right, guys, take care, and may the force be with you always.